She didn't leave because you weren't enough. She left because she believed something better existed. And that belief is where the regret story actually begins. When a woman walks away thinking she can do better, it's almost never about logic, it's about emotion. In that moment, she's not carefully weighing long term compatibility, loyalty, or stability. She's chasing a feeling. Maybe it's excitement that faded. Maybe it's curiosity about other options, or maybe it's the attention she's been getting that makes her feel like there's something more out there waiting for her. And that's the key. She's not leaving reality, she's chasing an illusion. At this stage, everything is amplified in her mind. The small things that once bothered her about you start to feel bigger than they really are. Meanwhile, the unknown, the what if of someone new feels perfect, exciting, and full of possibility. That contrast creates a powerful emotional push. She convinces herself that leaving is the right decision, not because she fully understands the consequences, but because it feels right in the moment. And feelings in that moment are driven by novelty and imagination. She starts picturing a different life, a different connection, someone who gives her constant excitement without any of the normal challenges that come with real relationships. But what she doesn't see is that she's comparing a real experience connection with an imagined, idealized one. And imagination will always win in the short term because it has no flaws. This is why trying to argue with her, convince her, or prove your value in that moment almost never works. You're operating in reality and she's operating in emotion. The more you try to pull her back with logic or effort, the more it actually pushes her away because it reinforces her belief that she needs to explore what's out there. What most men don't realize is that this phase is temporary. It's built on unstable ground, feelings that are intense but not sustainable. But in the moment, it feels real to her. It feels justified. It feels like she's making a move towards something better. And that's why the strongest position you can take is not to fight it, not to chase, and not to try to change her mind. You let her go experience exactly what she believes is better because only reality, not your words, can challenge that belief. You stay grounded, you stay focused on your life, you don't collapse emotionally, and you don't lower your standards just to keep someone who is unsure about you. Because the truth is, if she has to leave to understand your value, that's a journey she has to take on her own. And this is where the regret timeline quietly begins. Right at the moment she thinks she's upgrading, without realizing she's stepping into a lesson she hasn't learned yet. Right after she leaves, there's a phase that feels like absolute confirmation to her that she made the right choice. It's the freedom high. Everything is new again. New conversations, new attention, new energy. And in today's world, attention is everywhere. Messages come easier, compliments come faster, and the validation she receives starts to reinforce the belief that she upgraded her situation. This is where most men completely misunderstand what's happening. They see her posting more, going out more, looking happier, and they assume she's thriving without them. But what they're really seeing is a temporary emotional spike. It's not stability, it's stimulation, and stimulation always feels powerful in the beginning. In this phase, she's not thinking about long term connection or emotional depth. She's enjoying the novelty of being desired again. The attention she's getting acts like fuel. Every message, every new interaction gives her a small hit of validation, and that validation becomes addictive because it's effortless. She doesn't have to build anything real to receive it. But here's the part that most people don't see: this kind of attention is surface level. It's based on appearance, curiosity, and the excitement of something new, not on who she really is over time. And because of that, it lacks substance. But in the beginning, that doesn't matter to her because emotionally, it still feels good. During this stage, she might even compare you to these new experiences, but in a very biased way. She compares your real human moments where things weren't perfect to the highlight reel of strangers who are on their best behavior. Of course, that comparison feels in her favor, but it's not a fair comparison and it's not sustainable. This is also why chasing her during this phase almost always backfires. If you reach out, try to win her back, or show too much interest, it lowers your perceived value in her eyes. Not because you're not valuable, but because you're interrupting her emotional high. You become associated with the past she's trying to move away from, while everything new feels like the future she's running toward. So the strongest move here is discipline. You don't compete for attention. You don't try to outshine the newness she's experiencing. You step back and allow her to fully go through this phase without interference. because the more she indulges in this freedom high, the faster she'll eventually see its limitations. And those limitations always show up because attention without connection eventually feels empty. Excitement without consistency eventually feels unstable. And validation without depth eventually feels meaningless. But she can't see that yet, not while she's in the middle of it. Right now, she's riding the wave of newness, and it feels real to her. It feels like proof that she made the right decision. What she doesn't realize is that this phase isn't the destination. It's just the beginning of the lesson that will slowly unfold over time. After the excitement starts to settle, something subtle begins to shift. The constant rush of new attention doesn't hit the same way anymore. What once felt thrilling starts to feel normal, and what felt like an upgrade begins to feel familiar. This is where the comparison phase quietly begins, and it's one of the most important turning points in the entire timeline. Now, she's no longer just experiencing new people, she's evaluating them, even if she's not consciously aware of it. She starts noticing patterns. Conversations that felt exciting at first now feel repetitive. The charm that once impressed her starts to look surface level, and slowly, without trying, she begins comparing these new interactions to what she had with you. But this time, the comparison is different. In the beginning, she compared your reality to her imagination, and imagination always wins. Now she's comparing reality to reality, and that's where things start to change. She starts to notice the little things. Maybe the new guy isn't as consistent. Maybe he doesn't listen the same way. Maybe there's a lack of emotional depth or a lack of effort when it actually matters. These are things she didn't think about before because they weren't missing yet. But now that she's experiencing different people, she begins to realize that what you provided wasn't as easy to replace as she originally believed. This doesn't happen all at once, it's gradual. It builds over time through small moments, missed expectations, shallow conversations, inconsistent behavior. Each one chips away at the illusion she had when she left. And as that illusion weakens, clarity's to take its place. What's important to understand is that this phase is internal. She's not necessarily going to express it outwardly. She might still appear fine on the surface. She might still be social, still active, still engaging with others. But internally, there's a shift happening. She's becoming more aware of what actually matters in a connection, and this is where your past presence starts to re enter her mind, but in a different light. Not as something she was trying to escape, but as something she's now unconsciously measuring others against. The consistency, the familiarity, the emotional safety, things she once overlooked or undervalued start to feel significant. This is also why staying absent and focused on your own life is so powerful, because you're not interfering with this process. You're allowing her to reach these realizations on her own. If you were to step in too early, you would interrupt the comparison and reset the dynamic. But by staying grounded and unavailable, you give her the space to fully experience the contrast. And contrast is what creates clarity. Without it, everything feels the same. But once she experiences enough difference, she begins to see things more clearly than she ever could before. This is the stage where the fantasy begins to fade, not because someone told her it wasn't real, but because reality is starting to show her the truth. As time goes on, the gap between expectation and reality becomes impossible to ignore. What once felt exciting and full of potential now starts to feel inconsistent, uncertain, and sometimes even disappointing. This is the stage where the fantasy fully begins to break down, not all at once, but through repeated experiences that don't live up to what she imagined. In the beginning, she was driven by the idea that something better was out there, but now she's actually living that something better, and it's not matching the picture she had in her mind. The conversations aren't as meaningful. The connection isn't as strong. The effort from others isn't as consistent as she expected. And slowly, that realization starts to settle in. What makes the stage powerful is that it's based on firsthand experience. No one told her this would happen. No one convinced her of it. She's discovering it on her own. And when someone reaches a conclusion through their own experience, it hits much deeper than anything they're told. She may start noticing patterns that repeat with different people, initial interest that fades quickly, attention that lacks depth, or behavior that feels unreliable. And each of these experiences reinforces the same truth. What she left behind wasn't as easy to replace as she thought. At the same time, the emotional high she once felt is no longer there to distract her. Without that constant stimulation, there's more space for reflection, more space to think, to feel and to question the decision she made. And this is where doubt begins to grow. But this doubt doesn't immediately turn to action. Instead, it sits quietly in the background. She might not admit it openly, even to herself at first. Her ego may still try to justify her choice, telling her she just hasn't found the right person yet. So she keeps exploring, hoping the next experience will finally match her expectations. But each new disappointment adds weight. Each unmet expectation chips away at the belief that she made the right move, and eventually that belief becomes harder and harder to defend. What's important here is that this stage is not about you doing anything. It's about her realizing something. It's the natural consequence of chasing an ideal that doesn't exist in reality. And the more she tries to find it, the clearer it becomes that it's not out there in the way she imagined. Meanwhile, your absence continues to play a silent role. You're no longer there to be taken for granted, no longer there to be compared unfairly to a fantasy. Instead, you become part of a reference point, something real, something stable, something that now stands in contrast to what she's experiencing. And that contrast is what deepens the disappointment, because now she's not just seeing that others fall short. She's starting to realize what she walked away from. This is the moment where the illusion loses its power and reality takes its place. After enough time has passed and enough experiences have failed to meet her expectations, something deeper begins to happen. It's no longer just disappointment, it turns into reflection. And this is where the regret window quietly opens. Now she's not just looking at what's in front of her, she's looking back. But this time, she's not seeing things the way she saw them when she left. Her perspective has changed because her experiences have changed. The emotional high is gone, the illusion has faded, and reality has given her a new lens to see the past more clearly. She starts remembering you differently. The things she once overlooked, your consistency, your effort, your presence, begin to stand out. Moments that felt ordinary before now feel meaningful. Even the small things like how you showed up, how you listened, how you were there without conditions, they begin to carry more weight. And this is how regret forms, not from one big realization, but from many small ones adding up over time. She might catch herself thinking about specific memories, comparing how she felt with you versus how she feels now. And that comparison starts to feel uncomfortable because it challenges the decision she once felt so confident about. The certainty she had when she left begins to turn into doubt. But here's the important part: regret doesn't always lead to action immediately. There's still an internal battle happening. On one side, there are her emotions pulling her toward what she now recognizes as valuable. On the other side, there's her ego trying to protect her from admitting she may have made a mistake. That ego can be powerful. It tells her things like, you can't go back now, or what if he's moved on, or even, you'll look weak if you reach out. So instead of acting right away, she hesitates. She watches. She thinks. She replays scenarios in her mind. This is why some women don't come back right when the regret begins. They sit in it, they process it, they try to resolve it internally before taking any external step. And during this time, your absence becomes even more significant because you're not chasing, you're not reaching out, you're not trying to reopen the door. That silence creates space, and in that space, her thoughts become louder. Your absence becomes more noticeable, your value becomes clearer. She may start wondering what you're doing, if you've changed, if you've moved on, or if she still has a place in your life. And those questions create emotional tension, the kind of tension that often leads to action when it builds enough. But again, this only happens if you've maintained your position, if you stayed grounded, respected yourself, and didn't try to force anything after she left. Because regret grows strongest in silence, distance, and reflection, not in pressure. And this is the stage where she begins to truly understand what she lost, even if she hasn't yet found the courage to come back. At the final stage, everything comes down to one internal battle: emotion versus ego. By now, she has felt the excitement, experienced the comparison, faced the disappointment, and sat with the regret. The picture is much clearer than it was when she first left, but clarity alone doesn't always lead to action. Something deeper has to be resolved before she makes a move. Her emotions are now pulling her in one direction. They remind her of how she felt with you, what she lost, and what she hasn't been able to replace. There's a sense of familiarity, comfort, and real connection that keeps resurfacing in her mind. And over time, those feelings can become strong enough to make her consider reaching out. But at the same time, her ego is pulling her in the opposite direction. The ego doesn't like admitting mistakes, it doesn't like vulnerability. It tells her that going back might make her look weak, or that she might get rejected, or that things won't be the same. It tries to protect her from discomfort, even if that means staying stuck in a situation that isn't truly fulfilling. So she hesitates. This hesitation is where many decisions are made. Some women will sit in this space for a long time, going back and forth internally, never fully committing to either side. They might check your social media, think about texting you, even type out messages and delete them. There's a constant push and pull happening inside them. And then there are those who eventually let their emotions outweigh their ego. They reach a point where the desire to reconnect becomes stronger than the fear of how it might look. That's when they come back. Sometimes it's subtle, a simple message, a casual check in, something that opens the door without fully exposing their vulnerability. Other times it's more direct, but either way, it's a result of that internal battle tipping in one direction. But here's what most men never realize: just because she comes back doesn't mean everything is fixed. It simply means she chose emotion over ego in that moment. What happens next still depends on how you respond, how you carry yourself, and whether the dynamic between you has truly changed. And if her ego wins, she may never come back at all. Even if the regret is there, even if the feelings are real, she might choose silence over vulnerability, not because she doesn't care, but because she can't overcome that internal resistance. That's why your role in all of this is not to control the outcome. You don't try to influence her decision. You don't wait around hoping she'll choose you, and you don't put your life on hold. You stay focused, you stay grounded, and you keep moving forward regardless of what she decides. Because in the end, the real power is not in whether she comes back or not. It's in knowing that you didn't lose yourself trying to hold on to someone who had to leave to understand your value. And that's why no matter what she chooses, you're already in a position where you win.